to FroStee versus blitzchung is going to be coming up next, I believe, unless I've got my order
I think
right.
you're
That's
correct.
right. And this one is just, again, we said today was going to be a little bit crazy. This weekend was going to be a little bit crazy because of just how many different decks, how many different archetypes, and just the meta in general being a little bit nuts. And FroStee normally does bring something a little bit spicy, and he's going to be bringing this Paladin, this Murloc Paladin. So the third archetype of Paladin we've seen today. Never mind anything else, the third archetype. And he believes that this is actually, we interviewed him last week, like not just a one-trick pony. You don't have to draw lens into exactly tip the scales and win the game. You know, the way you do win a lot of the time, but you don't have to. You can just play a game and then play it out.
I'd be interested to see what his thinking is with the development from last week to this week, because as you said, he went for the same Murloc Paladin last week when the meta was mostly mages.
Yeah.
It's a fun tongue twister, I suppose. But with this switching over this week, I'd be interested to see what he thinks of the deck, because personally, I'm of the belief that this deck, its main function is to kind of punish the greedy decks, because like Druid, the Quest Druid, Reno Mage a lot of the time could struggle by just going with all in, a bunch of Murlocs, tip the scales turn 5 as often as you can. And I think that against tempo decks like Rogue and Zoo, it can struggle a lot more heavily.
Yeah, and then just for fun, I'm going to read out blitzchung's archetype. So he's protected his Paladin, his Hunter is banned.
Yeah.
It's Quest Paladin, the second one of the day.
Which he protected.
His Rogue is Aggro Rogue, but with Zephyrus. And he's running a Fairy Dragon too, I like it.
Yeah.
And his Warrior is Aggro Warrior.
Hey.
So you know, FroStee's protected his Warrior, but we don't care about FroStee for now. He can play his Murloc Paladin a lot. But, you know, Aggro Warrior up against Murloc Paladin. What universe are we in, Derek?
This
are we
is
just
going to be spicy.
Are we in a different Earth now? It's like, because it feels like it. If you asked me a few weeks ago, will we be casting in GM Murloc Paladin versus Aggro Warrior, I would have laughed.
Aggro's back, baby. It's happening again. This is like the callback to Murloc Paladin versus Pirate Warrior. Do you remember that match with the Spike Ridge Steeds that you'd play to shut down the Warriors and stuff? Oh, man. The good old days, but it feels like they're back yet again. This Aggro Warrior is a very spicy build of the deck. We've seen a lot of different builds of Aggro Warrior floating around. One of the ones that you and I were talking about was the one that No Hands Gamer, I believe, came up with, where he's running a lot of the self-damage cards like Injured Tolvir, Injured Blade Master, to get synergy, of course, with all the cards like Bloodsworn Mercenary and the Enrage as well. 2 mana +3/+3 warrior sounding card. I'm drawing a blank.
Is that Rampage?
Rampage, that's the one, not Enrage, Rampage. Sorry.
I was like, what? Enrage is a card?
I know, I always struggle with warrior cards. They're all called like Crash, Bash, Smash.
I'd love it if there was a card called Crash, Bash, Smash.
I mean, there's a card called Smash, and there's a card called Bash. Is there a card called Crash?
Is there a card called Smash?
Isn't there?
No, I think it's making stuff up.
There should be a card called Smash.
Okay. Okay, well, let's get into game number 1. Match number 5 of the day, FroStee versus blitzchung. Two of the, I would say, characters of the Asia-Pacific region. And I'm talking about not in terms of just only their personality, but in terms of how they approach the game of Hearthstone, the wonderful game that it is. And yes, it's going to be Aggro Warrior versus Murloc Paladin, but when Aggro Warrior gets to play an Eternium Rover on turn 1 against a Murloc deck, you feel pretty good about that.
And it's a very nice curve here for FroStee. He's got the two halves of the deck that you're trying to do. Number 1, the Murloc curving out. Number 2, the Prismatic Lens to draw yourself.
And
tip
there's
the scales.
Very real problem here, where although blitzchung's looking good, don't get me wrong, this is a great opening, especially against Murloc Paladin.
Very strong.
If FroStee plays Prismatic Lens and then gets it cheap, and then goes off on the board, and blitzchung can't deal with it because he doesn't run any AoE, of course, for Aggro Warrior, then there's a decent likelihood blitzchung just loses.
I think blitzchung may be able to do so, however. With live wire locks to get himself 2 lackeys, if he can get himself a good couple of lackeys,
it's banner though.
I think it's possible. Upgrade as well. I don't know, I think this is possible. Very, very possible.
I think a lot of it might depend on what mana Prismatic Lens hits.
Yeah. Especially as blitzchung can easily take 1 wave of hits from Murloc. With all this armor he's gaining.
You've never been really slapped by a Tip the Scales Murloc wave. I've been hit by 30 plus the turn after it was played.
Okay, I would say on average he should be able to survive it. Especially as that is not an especially cheap
that's
tip
not
to
what you're
scales.
after, yeah.
It still plays out on curve. It's not too bad.
This place is scary.
Also with 2 oracles, it does dramatically reduce the damage.
Yeah.
But it also means you can play it and then trade some off the turn after, then oracle, and then buff with some big hits on turn 6.
blitzchung here, generating those lackeys, setting up for the onslaught that he knows is coming next turn.
I think he might want to wait with that.
I was expecting the witchy lackey that turn, I have to say.
Here we go. 1 charge, 1 war leader, 1 draw. Okay. That's
It's not an especially strong.
yeah, very middle of the line.
Yeah.
But the good thing is there's a lot of health. There's 3
Yes,
3
that's
health
true,
Murlocs,
that's
a Reborn, and a 4 health Murloc. That's actually a lot of health. And to punch through that is almost impossible.
blitzchung can take a good chunk out of it, though, I would say. Obviously, the secondary benefit of Tip the Scales is FroStee now has 13 cards in his deck. And
Yeah,
it's
you just
turn
clear your
5.
deck.
It's insane.
It's why people play Zephyrs.
Yes,
like
or
Frosty's playing
Chef
Zephyrs.
Nomi, yeah.
Yeah.
Which, not this week, FroStee was playing the last week.
They'll never know what hit 'em.
I played Admirable's favorite card.
blitzchung this game will, however, know exactly what's hit him. There's a bunch of fish. I'd say that's a pretty admirable clearing up of the board there from the Tip the Scales. It's often a lot
Excuse me.
worse than that. But I wonder if it will be good enough.
Well, this is twofold, like you said, right? So there's the first wave of if you get charges, you get blah, blah, blah. And now it's, well, now FroStee can just do this turn and then just double Oracle or Bluegill Warrior, whichever one depends.
blitzchung's just fighting from behind the whole game.
And then Tasty Fin's going to draw another one, and so on. Ooh, okay, FroStee's waiting. Because he did so many trades, the Oracles do nothing, right? So he wants to wait to push damage.
I agree with that.
Say the magic word.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, the magic word this game appears to be...
Oh, yeah, no.
Of course, please come in.
Oh, yeah, you can do it on the Bluegill, actually. I missed that.
Yeah.
Oh.
This feels
and
to me like blitzchung is going to struggle to wrestle the board back.
This
in
is the
his
problem. With any deck that doesn't run a hard removal, an AoE removal, what are you supposed to do? You supposed to do? You just lose.
Yeah.
Like, especially with Cold Light Seer is the card that really makes that turn work.
Like, the only deck I've seen that doesn't run hard removal cards but is able to keep up on board is Shaman with Thunderhead.
Right.
I find that in that instance you are generating so much value, especially if you find yourself a Spirit of the Frog, that you can wrestle the board back. This deck, I'm not seeing it. Warrior is just too unreactive.
Yep, it's just too far behind, and now FroStee can almost ignore everything that blitzchung does.
It seems insane to me that you're allowed to play a Murloc deck with this many one-attack minions, not play Crystology, and it's still good. Like, obviously I know why you don't with the Prismatic Lens, but it's so insane. Crystology would be so good in this deck. FroStee saying, you know what, Cold Light was so good for me this game. You have one too. See how much good it is.
And there's literally nothing blitzchung can do. blitzchung is not playing like the No Hands Gamer version, which has a lot more taunts, and that you can then double them up, and you can actually make a... It's more of a tempo deck, I think, than Aggro Warrior, in my opinion. I think it's more tempo. But there's nothing blitzchung can do, and honestly, I tweeted out before today even started that I think this week Murloc Paladin was going to crush. I think its win rate is going to be very good in any games it gets to play across all of GM, because there are, I think it's 3 NA, 2 EU, 1, and just FroStee here that's playing specifically Murloc Paladin. And I think it's going to do very well because it does that pretty consistently. It's not even crazy that he got it off. Like, that's literally what you mulligan for, and you manage to actually snowball pretty hard every single time. But that's just game 1. FroStee taking the win with the Murloc Paladin. Pretty quick fashion. Seems like we're going to be done pretty shortly here, as we've only got maybe one more game and one more match after this. So we're just going to go to a quick break while we set up game number 2. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Welcome, recruits. I'm Alec Dawson, and today I'm here to teach you what it takes to be part of the League of Explorers. We need all the help we can get, because it's time to save old Doom. First things first. Being an explorer can be dangerous. The League of Evil has already stolen Dalaran, but now they're unleashing plagues in Old Doom, and they keep shuffling bombs into our decks. Luckily, Old Doom is stocked with ancient treasures that may give us a chance. We've already sent some of our best explorers to retrieve these powerful artifacts, but we need you to go out into the field too. Here's your quest: raid the Sky Temple. That may seem like a lot of spells, but you'll get there faster than you think. Once we complete our quest, we'll get the hero power Ascendant Scroll, which adds a mage spell to our hand and reduces the cost by 2. Ascendant Scroll allows us to load up on cheap spells for cards like Archmage and Tinnitus. Because if there's a way to defeat evil, it's fireballs to the face. Make no mistake though, the League of Evil has been leveling up too. Evil was powerful in Dalaran, but now they discovered something even more nefarious: teamwork. Here's Weaponized Wasp, one of Hagatha's new secret weapons. The laser on its head, courtesy of Blastmaster Boom. Weaponized Wasp plays well in aggressive lackey decks that look to take board control early. In Saviors of Old Doom, expect to see lackey build-arounds in Shaman and Warlock. But don't worry, we also have a secret weapon. Bees! No, really, one of our junior explorers found a bee-controlling device deep in Kartut's tomb. It took us a few days to decipher the instructions, but it's quite the powerful tool. Here they come now, it's bees! A new druid spell. This efficient removal spell excels in token-based druid decks. Need some extra pains for Knife Juggler? Bees! Need some extra bodies for Soul of the Forest? Bees! Need anything at all? Bees! All right, that's all we have for today, Explorer. We've got one more training session to go before you'll be ready for the dangers of the desert. So sit tight, and I'll see you out there in Saviors of Old Doom.
We are back, and we've got FroStee versus blitzchung continuing, and the fun just keeps on coming today, I think. And I think this is going to be a whole weekend of it as far as I'm concerned.
Very good.
We've got FroStee's Control Warrior going up against blitzchung's Quest Paladin. Yeah. So we get to see what this Quest Paladin can do versus a matchup that it is definitely built for. Quest Paladin was played a lot last week because the deck's not really changed.
Yeah.
But last week when a lot of ladder was warrior, 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 mage, 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 and even against mage had decent ability to keep up because mage can't really, it can freeze an AoE, but if everything's got death rattle and then you make big guys, it's kind of hard for them to deal with it. But mage is long gone. Who remembers that class anymore when it's all about paladin now? So let's see if blitzchung can fight back.
He's got himself a bit of an interesting build here of the Paladin, as we can see. Only one Questing Explorer. I've got to be honest, I think this is the first quest tech, aside from Druid, I've seen that doesn't run 2 Questing Explorers. Pretty surprised by that.
Yeah, it's a strange one. I know some of the Quest Shamans now don't run it either.
Really?
Because one of the problems is it's so dead after turn
I guess
4
so.
or so, or 5, depending on obviously what deck you're playing. But I found like
It's so good on 2.
It is, but I feel like a lot of the, well, one, for example, Druid has Crystal Merchant, so that doesn't need it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then also, I feel like Shaman does a lot of other good stuff
That's
on
fair.
2 as well.
Yeah.
So, it's not a bad card by any means, but I've always
very good
felt
card.
like, look, if you blitzchung and you've just got it locked, loaded, and ready to go, then fantastic.
Why play 2 when you just draw it every time?
Yeah, you don't even need to. But
course it's the right
I've
way.
often drawn it like turn 12 or something and just been
Yes,
like, this
obviously
is
it's poor.
extremely
Yes.
good.
This place is scary.
Not a bad start at all for blitzchung, I would say. It's still a board that can very much be swung away from him with the power of Warpath against Reborn minions, being able to take out the Reborn version of the weapon as well. But overall, I would say this is a very, very nice start for blitzchung.
Yeah, I think this for blitzchung is just more about fodder to just get the quest line.
Yeah.
Then he'll want egg and he'll want mechanical whelp. And that's literally how we'll plan on winning the game.
Or mechano egg.
Yeah,
That'll do too.
that'll do. Egg, whelp, or and I keep calling it Noitron, Annoy module.
Yes.
Just to give something the divine shield, and then he'll be like, right, I'm just gonna make these until the end of time. There's Kangor's army to fall back on, and we might even see him not bother with his micro mummy.
That's what I was going to bring up. He doesn't currently have enough Reborn minions to complete the quest without the micro mummy. He obviously has a decent chance to draw one, or the Crystology to guarantee the completion. But is it worth holding that back, maybe not playing it for the rest of the game, just to play into the best Crystal Kangor's Endless Army?
I think you could review the situation.
Because it's not that good right now compared to other things.
Exactly, yeah. I think there's plenty of time next turn blitzchung can just play Guardian, and if in 2 turns time he hasn't drawn a Reborn minion, then you know what? Chuck it down.
Yeah.
Like, just get the quest live. Because also in 2 turns time he'll be leading to turn 7, in which he can then egg hero power.
Yeah.
So it'll actually work out fine.
The Undertaker coming in pretty hot here. There is obviously not the added synergy of Immortal Prelate to go for infinite shuffle with the Undertaker, but just as one massive play, I think it's often good enough.
2 massive plays, you hero power.
Oh, yeah, that's a good
It's
point,
insane.
actually.
Yeah,
that's pretty
it's
insane.
absurd. You get Undertaker twice.
The Undertakers.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, see. It's sick as think whelp. Twice.
I like the sound of that.
I'm actually a little bit surprised that the deck hasn't gone as far as like playing a Brewmaster or something. Because imagine like Undertaker. I'm choking. if a minion's in like trouble of being killed,
Yes.
you can Brewmaster it. And then replay it the next turn, then hero power
Fair point,
it. You know, and you can make. I mean, the deck's not needed to do that because the meta's quite aggressive right now. But if this was specialist, this deck would be extremely slow.
I think there's probably other better ways you could go about that. Like maybe even just banker, throw that in there just to shuffle in one of your big minions.
If you want to put it in the deck as well, sure.
But
I
agree.
would have like a guaranteed like again and again.
There's lots of ways you can take this.
Reporting for duty.
blitzchung eventually realizing it, you know what, it's not perfect. I'd rather hold this back, I think, but he's got to get things rolling.
It leads into egg hero power, then Ziliak's hero power on the egg, and then Undertaker hero power. So it was his last chance to draw a revolt. It's not the end of the world, it really is.
And he could even just go Ziliak's on one of them and then copy that, which means that two of the robots that die would be better.
Ziliak's buffed,
Exactly.
yeah. Because I don't think they don't remember the stats.
They don't. That's
so
correct.
it becomes a neutral statted 1/2 with Ziliak's buff.
Right, so it would be a 4/4 instead of the.
This is just fine.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to be honest. I've been focusing very much on blitzchung's side of the board here because I'm not saying we've seen enough Control Warrior for a lifetime,
but we've seen enough.
We've seen a fair amount. We've definitely seen enough Control Warrior for a
one
lifetime.
turn away from the boy. And now I'm just honestly, Looking at FroStee's hand, I already don't really know how he deals with egg hero power. It's like he has to kill both.
Yeah, man.
You literally have to kill both next turn, or he's dead.
I mean, even again, looking at the power of Dr. Boom, if this was a turn 7 Dr. Boom, this would be a pretty different story. I still think FroStee would be in a bad situation, but he could start rushing in these mechs, taking value trades. That's how he'd have a good chance.
Yeah, it's doable.
Yeah.
Whereas honestly, I think unless FroStee draws something insane next turn, which I don't even know if that card exists, I think FroStee's almost already lost. I don't like calling things like that and being silly, but it's the nature of why this deck is powerful against Warrior. FroStee needs to not only kill both eggs, but then not die to the 8 eggs that come out of it. If he leaves one egg up, it's in the same position but next turn. And again, if he leaves one egg up, it's in the same position but the turn after, and it just carries on. And what's he supposed to do? I think he literally has to trade into the 2/2, trade into the 1/5, and then put the weapon in to proc both eggs.
Really? He just dies if he...
He has to just draw Brawl and hope.
Yeah, I think it's more likely.
Because it's only getting worse.
Yeah.
Unless, okay. There is something he can do, which is just double Brawl. He can go
So he has to
leave the eggs up and go Brawl into Brawl. But cards like Annoyatron and Ziliax make it worse because now these eggs aren't just tickling you for 1 damage a turn. You're actually getting hit significantly. So if they were all small 2/2s, you could get away with it. But I don't think FroStee's got the time, mainly because he's got 0 bros right now.
So we're looking at Ziliax magnetized on and hero power on this turn?
Yeah, why not? Check it out.
Yeah. Just makes the minions that you'll eventually be resummoning even better.
Maybe you wait.
Do you just full on greed it here and not play anything?
You could play Annoy Module pretty easy, I think. Because it's still... Because then you get more and more Divine Shields.
Yeah.
But I think because you've not took any damage, you could maybe Ziliax in 8/8. You know, and get like an Omega heal.
When are you going to take damage, though?
I mean...
He's just winning
I don't
too
think
hard.
he loses, but I'm just talking about really silly scenarios.
Okay.
But honestly,
I
I
like
don't
it.
think it's...
I think it's just the most aggressive.
Make him one a bit bigger too, which is nice. Less susceptible to Warpath. It's true. But look, it's just so insane.
This is actually absurd. Is this deck good? This deck can't,
I knew Darek would come
This
round.
deck can't actually be good,
Do you remember last week when I told you about Egg
I was
Paladin?
trashing this deck so much.
You remember last week?
Yes,
and you were
I
like, no,
remember.
it's a meme. Like, memes are good, Darek. You of all people shouldn't stand
Every
this.
time I face this deck, I have absolutely dumpstered it.
What are you playing?
I can't remember. I think I was mainly playing Mage, I think, at the time.
okay.
And, like,
Every time I played against this other deck, I was playing an overpowered deck and dumpstered.
well, I mean, that was the meta,
No,
right?
no,
It has
no,
to be
I'm
able to
winding you
stack
up,
up
I'm
against the
winding
best deck in the meta, or it's not good.
And I'm pretty sure FroStee just knows he's dead, yeah. FroStee's just like, I'm just going to see what he does.
Here's to
Maybe.
you, fellas.
Again, like,
I
I need to know what the weather is in Australia because Frosty's in a fleece and it's dark. I guess dark might be alright. I don't know why I think Australia is light for longer than us. Is that right?
I don't know.
I presume you do know things.
I guess maybe if the thermometer says it's very high, Australia's upside down. Flip it, low temperature. It's just science.
Oh, okay. Reminder to self, don't ever listen to Darek.
A very strong reminder.
Absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
Why is Frosty not conceded? I'm not...
This is just a conveyor belt of eggs.
Yeah. And it's not Easter. You can't choose one.
Oh my God.
But this is crazy though, right? Because what are you supposed to do as Warrior? Like, I honestly don't know how you win the matchup. And now it progresses the meta to, well, if people are going to keep protecting their Warrior, you just protect Paladin. Enjoy.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the pick for Specialist. As Dr. Boom comes down, sees what he's up against.
It's like,
I'm out.
Actually, can I be 11 mana? And it's just...
Can I suit down? Is that all right?
You just wait to just get killed by it.
Aren't we all ready?
Second reminder to self. Aaron just talks absolute nonsense.
Well.
There's nothing he can do. I don't even know why you think he...
Yeah, Plague of Death is literally the only thing that I think, like the only card in the game that could pull him out here.
How?
Right, I mean, he can't get it right.
I mean, even if he could,
he would still lose.
He Plague of Death's the eggs and gets 8 8s instead. He's just Plague of Dead.
Reminder, never listen to Raven. This joke's up.
Some people like my jokes.
Bad people.
Maybe.
And I think even
Let me guess. He's going to hear a power.
He's not actually dead. I think this is...
Oh, no,
I think he's just
I
dead.
got it wrong!
Yeah,
No! The one turn when I said he was going to hear a power and egg, I got it wrong. Not like this.
He still could if he wanted to.
But he didn't, and I'll feel bad. Well...
Wow, that was a game of Hearthstone, wasn't it?
Maybe the most one-sided game of Hearthstone that's gone more than 3 turns.
Honestly, that game, there was nothing FroStee could do.
No.
Nothing.
Because what FroStee has to do there, I think, is hope that mech whelps and the eggs are bottom of the deck.
Right, exactly.
That's literally what you have to do. If they're not, you lose.
Or the all reborn minions are at the bottom of the deck.
Yeah,
and even then, if that happens, all the high value cards are at the top of the deck, and you don't even
need
need
the
the
quest.
quest.
Just plays them out. Yeah. It's honestly, I think the times I've lost slow matchups with the Paladin deck is when I've not drawn an egg or a whelp, and then I'm just like, I've just played 1 and 2 drops against a slower, stronger deck. You just lose. But that was very, very one-sided. At least it was a quick warrior game. So let's move on as we find out what they're going to pick, because blitzchung now has his a win with his paladin, which means he still has his aggro warrior and his rogue left. I believe his hunter was banned, unless I'm making things up.
No, I believe you're correct.
His hunter was banned, right? That confused me. You went, no, I believe you're correct. I was like, wait, what?
Sorry. Psych got you there.
You did get me.
And I think he's going to have a little bit of a rougher time, especially if we do see him go up against that warrior. Obviously, again, 2 aggressive decks. It could be much more difficult to sneak the win through there. And therefore, I do fully expect FroStee to line up that warrior.
And if that's the case, which one do you actually fancy here? I know it's difficult because Mech Hunter is a relatively known factor for us as a deck, whereas Aggro Warrior is...
Well, the Mech Hunter's banned. It's Rogue
the Rogue
or Warrior. Yeah. And I've got to be honest, for me, this build of Aggro Warrior is somewhat of an unknown entity to me compared to the Rogue. I've played a good amount of the Aggro Rogue. I do not like it against the Warrior. You can cheese out a win early on, especially given that they've taken out a lot of the weapon destruction early on. But FroStee has, I believe, a copy of Weapons Project in there. He's got a Harrison in there as well. He has the ability to take out these weapons against Rogue, which against Aggro Rogue specifically is just so important at locking down those early lethals.
Yeah, and it's going to be Warrior versus Rogue now. So FroStee is on the Warrior, as you said. It makes sense, doesn't it?
Yep.
But it's just going for the Rogue, which means he either hasn't played the Warrior matchup enough to be confident, or be confident in how it works, or he actually has and thinks it's bad, which is
worse.
Very interesting, because honestly, if you had to tell me on just instinct, if I was as good with both decks, I would look and think Warrior has more sort of beefier, regulated damage that you can just chunk out, just consistently against the Control Warrior. And Rogue seems a little bit more flimsy to me. But that's purely just, I'm looking at deck lists and making a choice right now.
I think that's a fair assumption to make. Like, I may be overstating how bad this Rogue is against the Warrior, because things have slowed down a little bit for the Warrior. Their ability to lock out the game has got less since the nerf to Dr. Boom, but it's gotten higher since the transition to Saviors of Uldum. Since that came out, and you've obviously got the Armageddillo, the Tomb Wardens, and the Frightened Flunky, it means the Rogue has even more work to do to actually get any damage through to face. But at the same time, we could see a Giant Edwin at the start. We could still see Myra's Unstable element. There's Zephyrus in the deck as well. That can get you the perfect card to either clear the board, push damage face. There's still a lot going for this Rogue, but undeniably, it's an uphill struggle.
Yeah, and here we go. Final game of this series. FroStee looking for the win. Did take a very tough loss in the last game. Almost may as well not bother playing. But he is, I would say, ahead in the matchup overall. blitzchung, I think that's his work cut out for this Rogue. But blitzchung, known as an aggro master himself, doesn't have a bad opening hand for either. Maybe needs one more card to just bridge the gap.
Yeah, if he can
Are we
get
going to see a mummy?
Yeah, exactly. Like any of the 2-drop there, Micro Mummy, Grand Mummy, or Temple Berserker.
Restless.
Well, we know what it will be, which is of course the Restless
That's what
Mummy,
we
but
wanted
he
to
could get something else.
Ooh, okay. Talk to me,
Wow.
Derek.
He's holding back on the Vericat hit, which I guess is obviously the primary reason with the in-rogue activator for these evil miscreants on turn 4. There are not that many 1-drops in the deck, and there's only one 0-mana spell in Backstab to be activating early on. I guess he's just thinking that against a likely Frightened Flunky or 1-drop from FroStee, the Vericat doesn't do enough.
But
I've never seen this before.
But if he's likely going to dagger, it does do enough, right?
Takes it out, I suppose, yeah.
You know, it's better than, well, like now he's just out behind the 2-2. And also as well, what if it would have discovered him, what if it would have given him a 2-drop or a 3-drop, you know, something more consistent to play? I don't know. I've got nothing.
I mean, I think it is to activate the Lackey on 4 because he really, really wants to find a way to do that. I would argue, however, that with Bagel Pick already available, that gives you the ability to just play the Miscreant, bounce it back, and play it again.
Yeah. Like an absolute worst case scenario,
Yes.
that was guaranteed on turn 5.
I hope to hear his thoughts. Maybe if blitzchung ends up winning this series, we can ask him in the interview.
Well, it's one thing that genuinely, well, almost interests me more than most things is when a player does something that looks really random and I've never seen before. I'm like, well, I know this player is not bad, so I need to know why. Ooh, backstab. That's not bad either.
Yeah, now we're talking. This is where things really start to ramp up for blitzchung. And, you know, to be fair to him, he obviously drew the second Vericat, but we can see if he hadn't drawn the Vericat or the backstab, maybe it's getting a little bit tall here.
Yeah, or
Hey! Or
every time.
Or the backstab, he would have been able to make this play this turn, which would have been very nice to get the lackeys rolling.
Generous mummy.
You can just see, it's almost like the wacky neighbor that walks in a sitcom where it's just like, wah, wah, hands up.
Or the person that always shows up to the party that you just hit every time. You're like, I'm not going to be rude and tell you to leave,
Yeah, it's like,
but I didn't invite you.
It's like, you're really annoying, but you are really generous. You're keeping this whole party going.
The annoying loud one.
Yeah.
If that wasn't a 2-8, I'd want to see the generous played. Just 'cause it would make me laugh.
It's almost like Generous Mummy with its 2 hands up is weighing or not up whether or not it should be played. On the one hand, I'm garbage. On the other hand,
Would be funny.
I wonder.
I mean, honestly, with the Goblin Lackey this turn,
Yeah,
it's not that bad.
This is what I think Sol and Admirable were talking about. They were like, oh, you know, a lot of turns in the game, it's you will lose.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not terrible.
you play it
There
on
was no
curve.
actual praise.
Yeah, yeah.
The praise was not absolutely horrible in game.
Oh no, that was me though. Not Generous Mummy.
I mean,
Not actively terrible sometimes. But often, yes, actively bad. Immortal Prelate being found is, I would say, probably a negative overall. Even though, you know, it can give you some late game fatigue capabilities with Myras, I suppose. I think more immediately, though, it's just more likely to clog up your deck by redrawing a bad minion over and over again. But it
what
could
you're
be
saying
good.
is you need to keep it alive.
I guess so. I guess so, yeah.
Just don't let it die. Okay, well, there's plenty to do here for blitzchung.
Yeah,
Can
lots of
activate anything he wants very easily. Can go for the hooked scimitar. With the Corsair follow.
Minions damage, though, right? The big
But do you take Walk the Plank for with an eye to the future?
Warden.
For an eye to the future, Darren. Because you can kill this. You've got a load of rubbish on board. You can just trade.
Maybe. His hand is, I would say, surprisingly light for how big it looks. Like, obviously, the Dread Corsair is effectively free. If you take Backstab, that's free as well. But this hand plays itself very quickly.
And I feel like with all the damage you have, all you want is to not have to hit.
Yes.
You want to hit face.
Yeah, that's
so I actually really like this.
I like
I really like it. Maybe not the most straightforward pick, Because backstab just always feels good. This is pretty nice. Going to reduce as much armor as possible.
Looks like
Put some more damage.
Yeah, it looks like blitzchung is holding back. Sorry for interrupting. The Dread Corsair, which I think is wise when you're heading into such a strong Warpath turn anyway. Why give them extra? Because they always let rip with the Warpath.
And you saw there was no brawl. So if there's no brawl, well, you don't have to worry too much, but then if Warpath blows you out, you may as well just hold. Blitzchung's pushing plenty of damage right now. It doesn't look like a lot, but what, 6 on board plus X weapon. Also, funnily enough, even this trade isn't so bad. Although his board's gone, the Dynamatic is very killable. Yes. At least, especially with his Goblin Lackey.
I mean, it's still kind of annoying shape because there's the big weapon equips rather than the regular rogue dagger, so it requires an extra resource to come in here. What does blitzchung actually use to kill it off?
I think I might have thought the blitzchung had 2 lackeys.
Oh, right, okay.
So he could have just, like lacked and goblined in, but that's my mistake.
So
this is actually
many
way more
options.
annoying.
Generous Mummy just peeking out the side of that card there. Is it time? Did you ring?
So now, this is where blitzchung has to make a decision.
So many options.
Is he just going to jam everything face and go? Is he going to try and kill this Dynamatic? If he kills this Dynamatic,
works.
If he kills this Dynamatic, how does he even win the late game?
I mean, his game plan already feels like the War Myra's one.
Wait, you can play the Generous Mummy and just Goblin Lackey it in?
Yes.
Well, there you go.
GG.
Oh, I think it hurt blitzchung to do that. What a play. And now Frosty's like, Emperor Thorison on my hand. Sick.
There's just a lot of ways to clear this up nice and easy. And it wasn't that bad, I guess, for blitzchung. FroStee hasn't won the game on the spot with the extra mana granted to him.
Also, as well, there's no boom, so the likelihood that this even gets killed is reasonably low.
Boom would have been playable on this turn, however, with Coin and the Generous Mummy effect. Undoing the nerf.
Well, it's just high-fiving each other and calling it a day. Okay. Pick, deadly poison, just go.
Yeah.
I mean, so this is the problem. Frosty's got a lot of armor, right? That's just the way it is. But blitzchung, the more armor Frosty gets, I don't think blitzchung can play for the longer game. You can't like keep doing this because you will lose the late game. So I think he just has to suck it up and go. He does have the big boy that we've seen in what, 2 rogue games now.
Oh yeah, the Colossus of the Moon, which is his saving grace, quote unquote here.
Oh no, Mega never stays going
Well, without the Warpath, it's a lot worse. It's not. It doesn't even kill it off without the Warpath. So maybe FroStee won't be able to clear it off.
The Brotherhood shall prevail.
Only a 4/4 cleave. And now the problem is the aggro deck has less stuff than the control deck, even in just raw minion count, which is a big no-no generally.
And whether or not FroStee even knows it, he's setting up for the perfect kill on the Colossus of the Moon here. Oh.
He's ready. Blitzchung's like,
I hate you.
it's like, here we go.
That's the prelate as well. Definitely not what we want to see. And I think FroStee, honestly could have made the read that this was Colossus of the Moon.
It's a reborn minion that's
that
not
hasn't been played.
all game.
Exactly.
Yeah,
What else could it be, really?
And blitzchung has made some, I'll say, mediocre plays at best.
Yes. It does mean that FroStee is not able to clear it off with just the minions in play because he didn't completely split up the snip snaps. Restless Mummy obviously does remedy that situation very effectively.
Also, funnily enough, he has Plague as well, right? Trade Plague.
Oh yes, sorry. Plague is just hardwired in my mind to mean spreading play. I need to shift that over in my head. We need to have a better short.
Plague of Wrath, the Warrior 5 mannequin. But
Yeah,
yeah,
be spoiled about it.
because Plague would work on the Reborn minion is my point.
Yes,
the Reborn minion, as you can see, is injured effectively when it comes back. Oh, and damage into Myra's, into Prel.
I mean, this is one of the best things that blitzchung could do. This gives him a shot at this game, honestly.
Does he play? He plays Prelate now, right? Prelate, Sap, Myra. Because one card are you going to get for 3 mana that changes?
Right.
Like
so
Scimitar.
Edwin's been played, both miscreants have been played. Zephyrus, you're probably not playing on that turn.
Scimitar, right?
Yeah. So Scimitar, I suppose,
But for 1 extra card,
I wonder.
I think you just play it. It's 1 extra card.
Maybe. I mean, if it dies, it stops the ticking on team as well.
Yeah. And you can replay it again.
I think it was close. But, yeah, okay. I can understand it. And here we go. It's Myra's time. The last vestige of hope for blitzchung.
Waggle Pick's always good. Like, Waggle Pick, Deadly Poison, Life Drinker, Zephyrus. Whew!
I'm out
It's a lot of
cards.
damage.
It is. It's a fairly light hand. Like, not finding Leroy or Captain Greenskin is kind of sad.
You did just hit him for 10, though.
Did just hit him
Which
for
is
10,
kind of like
which
Leroy.
helps. Yes, you're not wrong. It's like Leroy plus 2/3.
Or 4.
Yes.
For those people,
I
it
say
might not be
tomato,
good.
you say noo.
Yeah, it might not be good for those people who can't do fractions. All right, I was just, you know.
Very considerate of you.
Yeah.
Very considerate.
Not everyone can do fractions.
Clearly.
The thing is, you can't make a joke that I can't because I wouldn't have got the number right.
Zephyrus now coming to the rescue. I'm sorry if that sounded like I hate you. I don't actually.
Twist the nether. Not bad, you know.
Honestly,
Not
pretty
bad.
good.
It's
Yeah.
not bad.
Shuffle it back into your deck as well. The
I'm
prelate, that
almost
is.
out of cards.
And now there's, you know, what, 8, 9, 10, 12. There's enough damage in that hand to get the job done. The taunt's the issue, but yeah, it does have a sap. blitzchung now, not only, you know, yeah, deciding whether he wants to max or whatever, but mainly I think utilizing the time to break down his hand and be like, okay, so I go Waggle Pick, Deadly Poison, Sap, Swing.
What is my purpose?
Like, Life Drinker, Swing. You know, and working out the sequence of events that he needs to do to push the optimal amount of damage. This Armagadillo is no surprise. He sapped it. He knows it's there. He will be accounting for it anyway. But now, blitzchung's got a fairly straightforward job. Pushes how does he push as much damage as possible?
Yeah, I guess he's not dead as it currently stands. He is going to be dying very, very quickly though. So he wants to be bouncing the Life Drinker, so he doesn't want to play that on this turn. So
does he just sap Deadly Swing?
Sap, Waggle Pick. You probably want to play an SI on the same turn as well with 2 of them, right? Sap, Waggle Pick, Deadly Poison, SI.
Yeah, I'm just thinking what if you can't guarantee a bounce on the Life Drinker the turn after?
I think in that instance where it survives, you're probably still fairly happy.
Okay.
Because you get to push an extra 3.
Sure.
But I see.
It's just very difficult to work out, okay, so he's done this, did he
Big
buff
time.
any, what's he play next? So,
Yeah.
You've got to just think of every outcome and work out the most damage, but I think you generally, as a rule, utilize as much mana as possible to push as much damage every turn. Makes sense.
Comes to the same conclusion. This is a pure face race here for blitzchung to try and close out the game. And as the damage currently stacks up, that's, what, 6 and 6 from the Life Drinker, which is 12.
Oh, weapons,
That
projectile.
may just be the final nail in the coffin, though. That is a terrible outcome for blitzchung. And a fantastic
maybe
draw
the
for
worst
FroStee.
card for blitzchung for him to have drawn, right? Because Harrison's already gone.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that just locks out the game.
Light the fuses!
Obviously, FroStee doesn't know that there's no Leroy. But I think with the Waggle Pick being destroyed, even if there was a Leroy.
Yep, there's not enough. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, it's
Never stacks
nowhere near enough damage actually without the Waggle Pick. FroStee, staying FroStee with his sunglasses inside when it's dark.
What is that environment? Fleece on in the middle of summer, sunglasses on because apparently it's bright light.
Wait. Is it some in Australia? Don't they have opposite seasons?
Oh yeah, that's right. I don't know.
But what's really winter in Australia?
That's true.
Winter's like just the average day at home, isn't it, for us? But anyway, congratulations to FroStee. Very strange series overall,
Very
I think,
weird,
with how one-sided things felt in terms of just the matchups. But I think that is going to maybe even continue if this meta stays as wide as it is and everyone's kind of playing whatever. I mean, bear in mind, FroStee's Quest Shaman was banned and Mech Hunter was banned.
Yeah.
What's going on? We're having like every single different archetype banned or protected at any given point in today. And that's only 5 matches down so far, so it's just kind of crazy to me that I don't envy these players when they have to decide what to submit every week right now, because
it's tough.
I'd literally be like, which 4 decks have I played the most?
Yeah.
And just submit, hope it's the good.
And it was interesting as well with not only the what they have to bring, but what they have to protect as well. With FroStee going for the Warrior, which lost its first game, and blitzchung going with the Protect on the Paladin. I'd argue maybe he even got the better of FroStee in the pick and ban phase, but still didn't come away with a win.
Maybe, but we'll talk about to the person who did come away with the win, as I believe FroStee is listening to us and he's ready. Hey, mate.
How you doing?
All right, so let's get important questions out of the way first. I need to ask you, because I've been wondering this for a while. Is it cold in Australia? Because you're always wearing a coat or a fleece.
Yeah, over the 3 months of Grandmasters, it's actually been all winter.
Oh,
so
okay.
I've been sitting here just like trying to rub my hands, trying to keep myself nice and warm throughout this entire time. It kills me just sitting here and not moving because I slowly start to freeze to death. I mean, I've even had like blankets on top of me before.
Because I want to presume you're just extremely exaggerating, because if I think of Australia, it's just heat. How cold is cold? Give me a temperature.
Well, it's not exactly, Europe cold or anything like that. I'm not talking about
35 degrees.
Like that. I'm talking, it's like, I don't know, 10 degrees Celsius at the moment.
It's a bit chilly.
So for Australia, that's fairly chilly. You know?
Okay, you know what? I'll let you off this once, but it just confused me that you were wearing a fleece and stuff. But anyway, most importantly, how are you feeling? That was a very strange series, but do you all just go through how you feel in general, and also what you thought of this week? It was a crazy one with the nerfs. How did you even decide what to submit? What did you think of blitzchung's decks? Give me everything.
So about the series, I actually felt pretty good coming into it. I felt like slightly favored. I felt whoever got the first game win would win the entire series, because it would be whoever won the first game would then I would have to put my warrior into something, and that means that if I cue the warrior into the paladin, well, I mean, we already saw what happened there, and
yes.
God knows that was a really close and interesting matchup that happened. But as for decks that I submitted, I heard you guys just previously just talking about decks that I played, and well, I mean, I got to admit, I kind of did just submit decks that I played this week because
it's reasonable though,
I was
right?
winning.
Yeah,
what was that?
I mean, if you're winning with decks and you've got a short time frame to practice, it makes sense to me at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was, thinking about some of the spicy ones. I was really trying to convince myself to bring Quest Paladin. But then I was looking at like the matchup spread, and I was like, well, it's got a good matchup against Warrior, and not very much else.
Oh, okay.
So I couldn't convince myself there. So I was like, well, I feel like people will start to bring aggro again this week, and Murloc Paladin does kind of have a pretty good matchup if you draw Prismatic Lens, and I just love making rainbows, so I just had to bring it.
I guess the one thing I want to know. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, but yeah, just deck-wise, it was just very interesting, I didn't really know what to expect this week for Grandmasters for the most part, so yeah, I just submitted things that I was confident in.
Right, so then going on from the decks you brought, about your shielding and your banning, how did that factor in? Because it seems like most players pretty predictably have gone with shielding their warrior, even with the differences with Dr. Boom and more importantly, Mage. But talk to me about your pick of the Warrior and also the ban of the Mech Hunter, which is, I think, traditionally over Grandmasters been a pretty poorly performing deck.
All right. So the reason why I shielded Warrior is because it's good against 3 of his 4 decks, you know. I know he's going to shield Quest Paladin every single time because, you know, he has to, right? Like, it's the good thing against my lineup, so he's going to do that. But I still need to make sure that he can't ban out the deck that is good against all 3 of his decks. You know, that's just the way it has to be. And I was looking at win rates, and it turns out that, believe it or not, Mech Hunter does actually have a pretty good win rate. Like, I believe it was the highest out of the 3 against all of my other decks.
Wow.
So I was like, well,
you put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna ban the thing that's statistically the best against my lineup, and we'll see how it goes from there.
Wow.
And you know what? I got to say, it did work out pretty well for me. So, you know, do try this at home, kids.
Yeah, I mean, I will say as well, just on a final note before we let you go, that it felt like, to me, one of the first series we've seen this season that had a, you know, with the new format that was very much like, okay, well, this beats this of yours, and then that beats this of mine. You know, very Conquest style of very back and forth. So it was very interesting for us to watch, at least. The second game was just funny more than anything because we had no clue from, like, turn 5 what you could even possibly do. But anyway, we grabbed you for a while, so we'll let you go, mate.
I was just going to say one more thing. I was really considering whether I should just concede on turn 1 of that game or not, or whether I'd get a fine for it or something like that. So I was like, well, you know, I'll just play it out just for the crowd. You know?
Well, to be fair, like the Whelps and the Mechano Egg can be bottom of the deck, right? There's a % chance there.
And also, we appreciate you letting us just talk about nonsense for 5 minutes. It was a nice break from actually having to analyze games, because my lord, was that was the least game of Hearthstone I think I've ever seen.
I'm glad that I can provide some entertainment to say the least.
Yeah. Always doing us a favor, FroStee. But now, thanks again, mate. Good job on the win, and we'll see you later this weekend.
Have a good one.
Yeah, it's just. Game 2 was just so weird. It was just a weird game to cast, wasn't it?
It's fun. It's fun to have one of those every so often, like with Tyler getting the Pocket Galaxy counterspell last game, where it's not a game, nothing can happen, and it's just one player getting destroyed. Kind of fun. Yeah,
very, very amusing indeed. But FroStee doing pretty well. I feel like FroStee and blitzchung are very similar last season in that maybe not too many people rated them, but they ended up doing, I think, overall fairly well.
Yeah, blitzchung was close to getting to playoffs.
Yeah, and I think, you know, FroStee's off to a good start, 2-1 this season now, so really not too bad, just getting some early wins in. Maybe gives either a little bit more breathing room, or maybe just propels you to the top. Remember, top 4 go through to the playoffs at the end of this season to go for a final spot that's available for APAC in the global finals. So all these players have literally everything on the line for this one, and we've got one